and we have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Welcome to Gay USA. I'm Andy Hum.
I'm Ann Northrup on this beautiful summer day here in New York City.
It is after the storm.
Yeah.
Quite a storm in Alabama, where one Alabama mayor is ready to send business to a rival city after a city council nixes a human rights bill.
I love this story. I don't love the next story. In Utah, a lesbian couple who were out on a camping trip disappeared and were then found murdered.
Awful. A rainbow flag was desecrated in New York and raised in defiance in Oregon. And cities in Wisconsin and Oregon, a different city in Oregon, unveil LGBTQ murals.
We note the passing this week of a civil rights pioneer in Alabama. And we look at recognition for a gay man who stood up to police entrapment in Buffalo, New York 40 years ago and won.
The situation for LGBTQ people and all people in Afghanistan was bad, and now it's gotten worse. We'll tell you about groups that are trying to help the LGBTQ refugees.
A Black bisexual icon is being given an historic honor in France.
Who could it be? And Anne is going to review Ellie and Abby and Ellie's dead aunt.
No, Abby's. Yes, Ellie's dead aunt. Sorry, I'm looking at an old list here. Yeah. And we'll show you a trailer for the movie because I liked it. There's a preview.
So, the House was busy this week in passing their big spending bill and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, which is very important to us, but all the Republicans voted against it.
Which is why we did expect these victories in the House, but we're still on pins and needles about the Senate and whether we can get these through there.
Now, this is something for everybody in the country. With census data out, reapportionment is upon us. Doesn't look good for the Democrats. Because Democrats are concentrated in cities, and the red states gained more population and House seats and are controlled by Republican legislators. And they are absolutely expert at partisan gerrymandering, which the U.S. Supreme Court refuses to stop. So the LGBTQ Victory Fund actually has a We Belong Together campaign to keep the people who draw the maps from dividing up concentrations of LGBTQ people. The census does track same-sex marriages, but no other LGBTQ data in the main census. So the campaign is looking at mailing lists of LGBTQ organizations at the local, state, and national levels for info. They are focusing on Arizona, California, Colorado, Michigan, and Montana.
The census and reapportionment is not an entirely bleak picture. For instance, New York State is going to lose one congressional seat, but it looks like they're going to be able to arrange to lose a Republican seat.
Oh, please, they better. It's Democrats who are drawing the lines.
Exactly. So Elise Stefanik might lose her seat upstate.
And of course, Lee Zeldin, way out on Long Island, a horrible Trumpite, is running for governor because he figures he will lose his seat.
And I think he'd like the job too. But we've been trying to get rid of Lee Zeldin for years and thinking we could, and we get a little closer.
Well, he's running for governor now, and if he runs in 2022, he can't run for the House as well. I don't think.
We shall see. We shall see. Let's get to some more immediate news.
Now, the Pillar, that conservative Catholic website, they invested heavily in linking, millions of dollars in linking Grindr data to Catholic priests, and they brought down the General Secretary of the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops last month. Then they published a report citing unnamed people in unspecified rectories in the Archdiocese of Newark They issued a report that in 2018, at least 32 mobile devices using Grindr in Vatican City in areas not open to tourists. Of course, there's always the Swiss Guard, and 80% of the curia there is gay. So the editors of The Pillar are not answering questions about how they obtained the data. Their real quarry is they hate Pope Francis, and they want to go after the bishops who are loyal to him, like the guy in the Archdiocese of Newark, Cardinal Tobin. Until 2020, Grindr routinely provided user location data to freewheeling online ad exchanges that harvested by data brokers. Finland fined Grindr $11.2 million for the practice.
Okay. Just follow them around a little, those priests. You'll find them in the gay bars and everywhere else.
So more people are calling into question the credibility of HRC's investigation into their president, Alfonso David, and his involvement.
Well, we called that into question the minute it was announced because, as we said, Sidley Austin, the law firm that has been hired to do this, has a very close relationship with HRC.
And HRC is not even paying them to do it. So, that's just really do this for us and, then we'll continue.
And you can have an even closer relationship with HRC.
It's no good. They need an outside firm that has absolutely in other words, the big story in the Washington Blade was from legal ethicists who said this doesn't pass the smell test.
Well, you heard it here first weeks ago. This is not a surprise. They're just confirming.
Let's go to Alabama, Ann.
Let's do, because there's more new news there. So in Montgomery, Alabama, the city council voted 5-4 to reject a non-discrimination ordinance that would have covered everything: sexual orientation, gender identity, race, sex, across the board. They said no,
everything, veteran status.
Yeah, no non-discrimination law in Montgomery, Alabama. So the mayor of Montgomery, Stephen Reed, is so disgusted by this outcome, and we can put up his picture. Stephen Reed on the left there is so upset at this rejection of the non-discrimination ordinance that he said, I am going to recommend that businesses that are considering coming here instead go to Birmingham. I'm going to send them to my friend Mayor Randall Woodfin there on the right of Birmingham because they passed a non-discrimination law in 2017. And I am disgusted with my own city council, which, by the way, rejected the ordinance basically on this canard about trans bathrooms. That was their excuse for rejecting the non-discrimination law.
Mayor Reed of Montgomery said, I'm going to give the Mayor Woodfin cell number if they'd like to go there. You never hear a mayor talk like this.
Never. So it's quite refreshing and quite inspiring to have him say that. The entire city council hearing on this is online if you want to seek that out. But it's so discouraging when these votes take place and they turn down the opportunity to ally themselves with non-discrimination. No, instead they'd rather reserve the right to be bigots.
All right, let's go to this very, very sad, horrible story in Utah. A lesbian couple, Kylan Schulte, 24, and Crystal Turner, 38, couple, they went on a camping trip and they kind of went missing in Grand County. They were later
Moab. They live in Moab. They were out camping near Moab.
Right. They were found dead of gunshot wounds after a police search. The women had texted that they saw a quote-unquote creep lingering at their campsite who was freaking them out. They were beloved residents of Moab, which hosts a pride parade annually, and the police are investigating.
Moab is a very cool place. I've been to Moab several times. It's gorgeous. Arches National Park is near there. All of Utah is pretty gorgeous. And it has a very hipster community, but it also has the more right-wing rural community. And it's a mix. And so you come up with horrible people who...
There's more. I mean, look, relative to this, but there was a woman reporter on Amy Goodman's show, Democracy Now!, about how the right-wing protesters are like physically attacking reporters, just going after them and taking slugs at them. And the police are doing nothing about it. There have never been charges brought.
Well, to some extent at the Capitol, but otherwise, it's getting very ugly out there. It's
no violence. We're against violence.
Yeah, well, we can be against it all we want, but the fact is there's a lot more of it going on.
And we don't have any guns, or most of us don't.
But there are also good things happening, and we'll get to more of those as we go along. But on a much more minor note, in Queens, New York, a couple of random vandals going down the street on their scooter stopped to take a few minutes to pull down a rainbow flag on a house and stomp on it. A security camera caught a quick picture of this.
It looked like two teenagers.
Yeah.
There is video, and the police are asking for help in apprehending them.
Yeah. Do we have that picture? Maybe Rich is having.
We have a picture of the flag flying.
There it is.
They're the kids in the street.
You can just see on the lower right that hand on the flagpole. That's one of the kids from the scooter pulling down the flag. He then stomped all over it and left it on the ground and drove off on the scooter.
On the other hand, in Oregon, after the Newburgh Public Schools Board voted to ban Black Lives Matter, LGBTQ, and other flags, signs, and clothes that were deemed political.
That had been put up by staff and faculty.
Yes, residents built and erected a massive rainbow pride flag that can be seen from the local high school, 8 by 16, mounted on plywood. We have a picture of this there, Rich? Erected on a hilltop of the McCarthy farm. Aaron McCarthy says it's not political, it's about human beings. And J. Bill McCarthy said it's recognition that people exist.
And someone said, I only wish it could be 10 times bigger. Me too. The school board voted to get rid of those flags and signs because they called them divisive. This whole idea that if you are celebrating any community that isn't white and straight, you are being divisive, is this trope that has taken over the world. The faculty pointed out, no, it's not divisive. It's supportive and welcoming, and that's what we should be doing, is welcoming everybody.
That's the history we were raised on. People of our generation, that was the Hollywood that we were raised on. All those images, all that stuff for years was just, completely white supremacy. President Wilson thought that what's the D.W. Griffith movie, Birth of a Nation, was a terrific film.
Well, Wilson was a big racist who brought back,
He fired all the black people from the federal government when he came in.
Jim Crow.
Yeah.
All right, but more good things also in Oregon, in Portland, they declared August 20th as Never Look Away Day and put up a big mural. We have a picture of this with a lot of LGBTQ heroes, particularly Oregonian heroes like Donna Redwing and
Kathleen Sadat, who organized the first Pride Parade. She's the second one there. Marsha P. Johnson there on the left. Robert Kennard, the creator of the first Black LGBTQ comic characters. Actor Angelica Ross. David Martinez, the co-founder of the city's Q Center and its Latinx Pride. It's 120 feet wide, an entire city block.
Marsha was not an Oregonian.
No, but
it's a mixture of local and national.
Are you sure Donna's up there? Because she is on a bus. They did this on buses.
She's on there too.
Okay, they did it on buses, city buses, back in June. It's terrific.
But Marsha also shows up along with Sylvia Rivera on a new mural in Green Bay, Wisconsin, called We Will Be Seen. In part, this was done to honor Marsha on her birthday on August 24th, and we have a little video about that mural in Green Bay.
Green Bay Mayor Eric Genrich unveiled a new mural in support of the LGBTQ community, declaring a weekend of pride in downtown Green Bay's Art District. The weekend kicked off with a block party featuring live music, free COVID vaccines, and lots of food. It all led up to the unveiling of the mural, which is located on the side of Annapolis Lounge, which is Wisconsin's second longest running gay bar. Now, when the bar first opened 21 years ago, people would kick open the front door and throw trash or firecrackers into the bar. The door was sealed off and people could only enter through a side door. Now, thanks to a grant from Green Bay's Redevelopment Authority, the bar received a new pride mural and a new front door.
There's a middle school here, a high school, and an elementary school here. And I remember growing up as a person of color, fearing that I wasn't validated or visible. So this is kind of for them, right? But it's also representation for the adults as well that are struggling through this. So it's not even the youth, it's, people of all ages.
The mural features 2 trans activists during the Stonewall riots, and it will remain permanently.
Wisconsin has a lot to be proud of. They were the first state in the country to pass a statewide gay and lesbian rights bill covering just sexual orientation in those days, 1985.
Unfortunately, they have a senator not to be proud of, Ron Johnson.
Well, harsh.
I hope he'll
He's
disappear.
retiring, isn't he?
I think so. And New Hampshire also did something good for the trans community this last week. They eliminated the medical proof requirement for document changes, for gender corrections on documents. And speaking of corrections, we talked about the corner of the Congressional Cemetery last week, and a viewer pointed out that while we said Tip O'Neill, not gay, as far as we know, happened to be buried there. He's not buried there. He's buried on Cape Cod, but there is a marker for him there in the Congressional Cemetery. So thank you for that, viewer.
Let's go to Highlands Ranch, Colorado, where a coach left a job at Valor Christian High School after the administration told him he couldn't identify as a gay man. His name is Inoke Tonga. Let's go to our video report.
Be gay or admit that I wasn't gay and that I was just having what they call the spiritual battle.
That was the choice Inoke Tonga says he had to make. A gay man, but also a volleyball coach at Valor Christian High School. He says this happened during a conversation with the school's campus pastor and athletic director.
And they started the conversation saying that somebody, staff member, had found something on my Facebook of an interview and being highlighted as a gay man and me identifying as a gay man.
Valor says that post suggested Tonga may not support the school's beliefs around sexuality and marriage. Tonga was planning to coach volleyball for her second season with the school, but after this conversation last week, he says he decided to leave.
They did say it was a danger to be in front of the kids. And that to protect the kids, I couldn't be in front of them.
Tonga says staff gave him the option to stay under certain conditions.
I had to denounce being a gay man, cut off any goals I had of marrying the love of my life, and delete the posts, and then also accept their help to becoming a child of God. And I just felt immediately that denouncing who I was never going to be an option.
In a statement, the school says they agreed with Tonga that a separation was appropriate.
I thought of my boys, thought of my girls. And that's ultimately, after a day, after 2 days, ultimately why I decided to speak up.
After sharing his story, Tonga says he's received an overwhelming amount of support from parents and strangers. That's motivating him to continue coaching somewhere else.
It's humbling. It's very humbling for me.
Kelly Rinke, 9 News.
Christianity sounds like a very cruel religion.
I don't know how people sleep at night doing these things to other people. It's so cruel. It's so ignorant. And it just keeps happening.
I have a question. Who's staffing their drama departments? And seriously, I mean, there are a lot of.
And they're choir masters, and there are gay people all over these schools, and they're just forced to keep quiet if they want to keep their jobs, and that is a terrible, terrible decision for them to have to make.
Well, a lot of people who aren't going to be able to keep their jobs are sex workers who have been making money at OnlyFans. That's a paid subscription platform where you essentially pay to watch someone do something, entertainment or whatever, individually. And they are cracking down on explicit sexual content, which is the content that built the site. I don't know where they think they're going. This is really upsetting to the sex workers. And this was also a safe place for sex workers to work without violence and all that. And the place has 2 million users, but
they're going to have about 2 when this takes effect. This is they were trying to raise money, and the investors, the potential investors, banks and other mainstream funders said, we will fund you if we're getting a note from our director. OnlyFans just announced they reversed that. So, hallelujah, they're standing up for their principles.
They found another banker.
Well, we'll see whether they find the financing. It's hard to imagine that they were going to be able to continue to exist.
Well, we were founded by Lou Maletta, who did news shows, but he also did erotica shows, and that he always ran into trouble with funding for that reason, because some people didn't want to be associated with that, even in the 1980s.
Yeah, well, he thought he was going to turn this into a money-making enterprise, but he had look, just him doing 10 minutes of the show and the getup he had on was something that mainstream advertisers did not want to be associated with.
Well, I was a little nervous being associated with him when we were coming home from the Republican convention in 1988. We walked into a Hardee's when he was dressed like that in his gay T-shirt and his spandex and his cowboy hat. The place went quite silent.
Well, Lou was ahead of his time, both in being unapologetic about his business and his looks, and in thinking that he could get American Express to sponsor shows where that was happening. So it was just a little too early, but he certainly blazed a trail in setting that out as an ambition. But it wasn't going to happen, and it wasn't going to happen for OnlyFans with their content with the funders they were looking at. So I'll be very curious to see more on the story and who is going to be funding them. But I'm glad that the sex workers have convinced them to reverse their attempt to get rid of them.
Thanks for the bulletin, Rich. Okay.
Keep those cards and letters coming.
Well, next week on Gay USA, Chris Cooper is going to be our regular substitute co-host. He's going to be substituting for Ann. And I woke up in the middle of the night and I heard his voice in Spike Lee's new HBO documentary, New York Epicenters 9/11 through 2021 and a half, which takes us through the pandemic. And it starts off the whole BLM section with Chris Cooper in Central Park talking about what happened to him as a birder with that woman, and it was quite something.
I think that was the same day that George Floyd was murdered by the COVID. Yeah,
exactly. So they segue into that. I'm a little concerned that Spike Lee, in talking about 9/11, is going to be featuring conspiracy theorists who think it was an inside job bringing it down. But what I saw of the pandemic part and the race part was terrific.
Well, did you see him putting conspiracy theories there, or you're just afraid?
It's coming in the next step in the new. It's every Sunday for like 4 weeks on HBO on Sunday night. The Times interviewed him about it, and he defended putting these conspiracy theorists into the show.
I see.
He said, I'm just giving everybody a say. Well, come on. We don't give everybody a say here.
No, not like that. All right. Okay. Well, let's look at a real hero who is not a conspiracy theorist, and that was Lucille Times. Back to Montgomery, Alabama.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, she's died at the age of 100 of COVID. Now, 6 months before Rosa Parks of the NAACP wouldn't give up her seat on a Montgomery bus in 1955, Lucille Times, at the age of 33, had a confrontation with the same bigoted bus driver, James Blake, who tried to push her car off the road with his bus. She was just going to let him go by. He gets out of the bus. He called her a black SOB, you could spell it out, and she called him a white SOB, and it got physical. So a cop stepped in, and the cop strikes her with his flashlight. But he let her off and said if she were a man, he would have beaten her head into jelly. She started her own bus boycott, picking up black people at bus stops in her car, using her husband Charlie's cafe as a planning place, which became a planning place for the Montgomery bus boycott in many ways when Dr. King got involved. Her nephew said Lucille was loaded for bear and she wouldn't back down for nothing. She participated in the year-long bus boycott triggered by the arrest of Rosa Parks. Ms. Times' home now is on the Alabama Registry of Historic Places.
She was also part of the march from Selma to Montgomery, where everybody got beaten up by the cops. She was a fierce, fierce activist and a role model for so many people. And it's great that she lived as long as she did.
All right, shall we go to Buffalo?
Sure.
Well, a new historical marker has just gone up. We have a picture of it at the corner of North Street and Irving Place. This is where a gay guy named Bob Upplinger, 1951 to 1988, was arrested in 1981 by an undercover cop posing as a gay man, charged and convicted with loitering for the purpose of engaging in deviant sexual activity. Now, this is when the New York State sodomy law had been declared unconstitutional in 1980 by the state high court. But the police began using the loitering and solicitation laws to persecute gay people further. 1983, Upplinger had the conviction overturned by the state high court. The Erie County DA appealed that to the U.S. Supreme Court, and thank God the Erie County DA lost, leaving police with one less tool to go after us. They continued to arrest us for alleged public sex in parks and restrooms. You know, that's a picture of Bob Upplinger, who died in 1988, a real hero for seeing all that through. But, you know, the police have continued to harass and arrest gay people in public parks. And, you know, sometimes they don't even bother, you know, soliciting and getting an assent to, they just look at someone who looks gay, you're in the park, that's an easy collar, I'll arrest you. It is disgusting.
And then they lie. They lie about the arrest. They lie about the activity. They lie about what you did or what you consented to or what you asked for. They just lie. I've had cops lie about me. We've seen Robert, I want to say, the guy who brought the case.
Yes.
Yeah.
Our friend Robert.
Huh? Yes.
Victor.
Our theme here again today, and I think every week for the 25 years that you and I have been doing this show together, is activism, whether it is the individual activism of a Lucille Times or a Bob Upplinger or the Colorado teacher or the more organized activism of the sex workers fighting back against OnlyFans. It is this activism which sustains us in a semi-okay world, barely by the skin of our teeth. And it is necessary every single day on an ongoing basis. You would think the world could, and the human race could be more rational and more caring about each other and more compassionate and not have to have these situations of activists making these individual decisions to fight back. And yet time after time after time we see this. But it is so rewarding to be able to fight back and to, whether you win or lose, but to stand up for yourself is just the greatest feeling in the world.
It is. Okay, some other news notes. We told
Anne's lecture for the week.
No.
So,
Terrific. Thank you. And I guess Rachel Maddow is going to continue with her sermons. She negotiated a new contract with MSNBC. Now, there's conflicting reports. Is she going to keep doing the weeknight show, or is she going to do a weekly show?
Well, what I read was that she's going to keep doing the weeknight show for a while, but it's going to gradually evolve to probably a once-a-week show.
And she's starting her own production company that will be bringing projects to NBC Universal first.
Movies, books, all sorts of things. But the thing that it doesn't surprise me that she's re-upped with MSNBC and NBC Universal and gotten a big deal out of it. What surprised me was that the word was that she was thinking of leaving so that she could concentrate on a podcast and streaming stuff. And I thought that was...
And spend more time with her wife.
Yeah, there was one report I read that said they live in Massachusetts and she commutes daily. No, she doesn't. She has a place here. She's here and goes home to Massachusetts on the weekends.
Right. Staying in New York, our new governor, Kathy Hochul, she spent the weekend in the Hamptons before becoming governor, including a mostly LGBTQ reception at the home of Judith Case in Windsor. She also went to a reception hosted by Trump supporter John Katzimatidis for Greek Americans, and was attended by Al D'Amato and others from the permanent government. At the same hotel in the Hamptons, Rudy Giuliani was at a reception for South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem. I mean, they come here to make money.
Was that where he was shaving at his restaurant table? Electric razor. You could see it online.
Hey, we haven't talked about the California recall much, and of course it's September 14th.
Yeah.
People are voting already. Obviously, people are horrified that if the governor doesn't get 50% no votes, no, do not recall the governor, then they move on to whoever you voted for among the 46 candidates. We've talked a little bit about that. People are most worried about Larry Elder, who was revealed this week. He's a right-wing radio guy, for doing a comedy routine that's been unearthed with a heavy use of the N-word. So it's very tight.
And he's black. Let's point that out.
He's black, and the people who got the thing on the ballot to get rid of the governor are now horrified that Larry Elder might win. Well, folks in California, obviously, vote no if you want to preserve some sanity out there. Keep the governor that you have instead of one of these clowns. But get rid of that system, which is a horrendous way to do it. I mean, the least you ought to do, if you're voting for governor after getting rid of your governor, have ranked choice, so it's a majority decision. It's not somebody who gets 22% of the vote, that kind of thing.
Well, he has the same kind of minority solid core, Larry Elder, that could very easily get him elected, because with 46 candidates in the race, you don't need much of a vote to get elected. But what's this I heard about? If Newsom is recalled, if he doesn't get 50% of the vote, that he can resign and give the office to the lieutenant governor, and that would preclude the recall elected alternative taking.
Well, when does the recall go into effect is the question. I mean, at the moment of the vote, or is it?
I don't know. But I read a reference to that. I don't know how real that is.
If anybody from California is listening, tell me, and I'll include it in the email. I mean, I've already suggested, if the polls show that he's definitely going to lose, he ought to resign now and let the lieutenant governor be governor and preempt the thing.
Very, very difficult for anyone to admit that hey, I'm just saying.
Do you care more about the state or yourself? That's the question.
Well, but that's not the point. The point is, just as Stephen Breyer thinks he's going to live forever, and so did Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I'm sure that Gavin Newsom, no matter what polls you show him, does not believe he's going to lose this vote. It's not about making a decision about what's best for the state. It's about wishful thinking on these polls.
Well,
polls have been wrong, and people.
I mean, it's tough, when
the polls say, but I'm going to pull this out.
Look, when a person sits there, people generally don't like incumbents. Biden's numbers are slipping a bit. They just, something's going wrong in my life. You're bad. There's something to that. There was an Echelon Insights poll this week that says only about a third of voters want Biden or Trump to run again. In the terms of who they prefer among the Democrats, Harris is at 33%, and the next one is Pete Buttigieg. No others in double digits. In the Republican side, it's DeSantis 25, Pence 23. But Trump still leads if he runs in 2024.
It's a little early.
It's a religion. They never change.
All right.
Sports news?
Excuse me?
You ready for some sports news?
Sure. Unfortunately, our friend Sha'Carri Richardson, you see her there second from left, a little behind. She came in last in the 100-meter dash in Oregon at the Prefontaine race. The three women arrayed across the page in front of her are the three Jamaican runners, or some of them Jamaican, I think maybe all of them, who finished first, second, and third at the Olympics, gold, silver, and bronze medal winners. Sha'Carri, who was barred from the Olympics because they detected marijuana use, but who had won the U.S. Olympic trials. This was her, everyone thought she was going to stage a big comeback and a win here to put the medal winners to shame, but instead she finished last. I suspect the pressure was just too great, and we'll keep an eye on her for the future. We look at her because she is openly bisexual and has been a new hero for us.
And the out lesbian pro golfer we told you about last week, Ryan O'Toole, who had a breakthrough win in the Scottish Open last week, missed the cut in the British Open.
Yeah, but the British Open was won by Anna Nordqvist, who not only has almost the same name as me, but who I once played with in a pro-am in Springfield, Illinois. So
it was very exciting.
I'm always a fan of Anna Nordqvist.
All right, the Paralympics are underway in Tokyo with at least 27 out LGBTQ.
31.
Oh, they keep coming out.
Yes.
We have a picture of Great Britain's Laurie Williams in the pic there on the left, right? And on the left?
Correct.
She is one of 4 out athletes on her wheelchair basketball team.
Basketball seems to have the most out players. But yeah, the numbers, every new article I read has a larger number. So
did any other men come out besides Sir David Lee Pearson?
One man, 30 women.
He's a para-equestrian who has won gold 11 times at the Paralympics. There were 2 non-binary Paralympians, both from down under, wheelchair racer Robin Lambert and Maz.
3 non-binary.
Oh, if you want to get updated on all this, don't depend on Gay USA. Go to outsports.com for more information. There were out flag bearers for some of the teams. Morgan Samuel, a rower from Israel, and Marieke Miller, wheelchair basketball from Germany.
All right. Well, we should talk about Afghanistan. We've sort of buried the lead story here. The Taliban, they've been trying to posit this image of a kinder, gentler Taliban taking over in Iraq. They've learned a lot in 20 years. They're doing it differently. They want a peaceful Afghanistan. Well, one Taliban leader was quoted as saying, Afghanistan has no history of democracy. We're not interested in that. We will be imposing Sharia law administered by our council, We will be governing the country that way, and Sharia law not friendly.
Well, we're supposedly a democracy. We had the death penalty for homosexuality when we were founded. We realized the Taliban wants to take us back to the 7th century. A gay expat author from Afghanistan, Namash Sadat, says the Taliban will weed out and exterminate LGBTQ people there. He was told if he returned to teach at American University there, he would get the death penalty. The university fired him. Yeah, he doesn't expect public executions. This is to your point that they want to seem better, but they're just going to hunt down and kill people in their homes. He says the LGBT community there has spent the last 20 years living like zombies in an open-air prison with no rights. So it wasn't good before this. They're fearing persecution from their families as well as the state. So they've hidden. Now they're going to have to hide better to evade the Taliban. And so there are groups that are trying to provide safe havens. Rainbow Railroad is helping LGBTQ people fleeing state-sponsored violence around the world, and especially in Afghanistan. So Canada specifically mentions LGBTQI people in offering help to resettle 20,000 refugees from Afghanistan. Lambda, Outright, and Human Rights Watch and Amnesty, they're doing advocacy, but Rainbow Railroad is about resettlement.
Rainbow Railroad has been in business for some years. They're headquartered in Canada, I think maybe in Toronto. They do a great job. I think I just read they've gotten 1,600 LGBTQ refugees out of the Middle East in the last few years, from Syria, from Iraq, from other countries where they were being persecuted. So Rainbow Railroad, you should look into what they're doing and see if you want to help.
Let's talk about an American who was much persecuted by racism and fled to Paris, Josephine Baker. She was a bisexual Black American dancer and civil rights activist who became a French citizen in 1937 and died in Paris in 1975. She's going to be the first Black woman honored in the Pantheon, France's Tomb of Heroes. It's conferred by President Macron, and they'll have a ceremony on November 30th. She left the US because she couldn't stand the racism and became a star performer in Paris. She later returned to the United States as a passionate civil rights activist and joined Dr. King to speak at that's her there, in the '63 March on Washington. During World War II, she fought in the French Resistance as an ambulance driver, an intelligence agent. In the 1950s, she adopted dozens of orphans of all races and religions, living with them in a chateau in southwest France. She called them the Rainbow Tribe. She was bisexual during the Harlem Renaissance, had a relationship with blues singer Clara Smith, but also with women including, who else? Frida Kahlo. Ada Bricktop Smith, French novelist Colette. She also went with men, like she went with George Simenon. She was wild, but I believe she was the only woman to speak at the 1963 March on Washington. I read that somewhere in the biography. Sure. Think about that. Well, they did. Mahalia Jackson did sing.
Yes. Well, speak. But while we're in France, there's a new book out, a Simone de Beauvoir novel written in 1954, but never published until now. It is being published in English as Inseparable, and it's a novel, but it's really her life story, falling in love with another girl in her youth, like when she was 9 or 10, and it's been reviewed as a tragic lesbian love story, too intimate to be published in her lifetime, but it is now coming out and paints a little different picture of Simone de Beauvoir and where her real affections lay, not entirely with Jean-Paul Sartre.
In Poland, there were 2 LGBTQ marches. We have a picture in Częstochowa, deeply conservative part. About 200 held their third LGBTQ march there under heavy police guard, as you can see. The police did prevent attacks from the far-right groups. An activist, lesbian activist there, Monica Radica, said, "Whatever we LGBT people do is interpreted as a provocation by the other side." Back in 2018, they had to call off their march halfway through due to attacks from right-wing extremists. And
the other march was in Gdansk, about 3,500 LGBTQ marchers and 1,000 cops keeping them separate from the violent right-wing attackers.
But the mayor there, Alexandra Maria Dulkowicz, kicked off the march saying, "Gdansk is a rainbow today. The rainbow is a symbol that connects heaven and earth," and called for unity and mutual respect, as Anne did at the beginning of the program.
Well, the government of Scotland is calling for unity and respect. They have issued a guidance to schools in Scotland for how to treat trans students, use proper pronouns and names, give full bathroom access, have gender-neutral dress codes, address bullying proactively, and have a curriculum that includes everybody. And they said the guiding principle should be to operate in the best interests of the child. What a concept.
In Mexico, the Yucatan Congress voted against same-sex marriage, and then the High Court of Mexico said, "You can't do that. You did the vote in secret." So today they're going to vote again, and we'll see what happens. Go ahead. Well, in Brazil, the Pope has accepted the resignation of Bishop Tomé Ferreira de Silva, 60, after a 60-second video surfaced of him pleasuring himself with another man. It was leaked by a close associate. Now, he survived previous scandals, one covering up sex scandals in his diocese, another exchanging sexual messages with a minor, and a third about having an affair with a male employee. It's very tough to take a bishop out.
Life would be so much simpler in these churches if they would just sanction homosexuality instead of condemning it and punishing it. The world would be a different place.
Yes, indeed.
In Liverpool, England, they're going to have a Reclaim Pride Coalition rally on September 18th, promoting LGBTQ plus rights, trans, healthcare, and self-determination, banning conversion therapy, social, racial, climate justice, and no corporations at Pride. The Reclaim Pride Liverpool formed a year ago after the regular Pride was postponed again, and homophobic and transphobic attacks started skyrocketing. And their motto is that Pride should be political, not a party. I couldn't agree more clearly.
AIDS news. Our friend Ivy Kwan Arce is being honored by the Treatment Action Group at their November 16th Research and Action Awards. That's a picture of her won a while ago when she was having great difficulty with her AIDS, and more recently. She's an activist, a mother, an artist, living with AIDS since 1990, and she was on our long-term survivor show. She fought to pioneer the use of nevirapine to prevent maternal-to-child transmission of HIV. Long active in ACT UP, a patient of the late Dr. Joe Sonnabin, she became part of in ACT UP, the Women's Treatment Group, Pediatric Working Group, that mobilized women with AIDS to demand access to medication and clinical trials. Congratulations, Ivy.
Still a relentless activist and member of ACT UP New York. One of the other honorees this year from TAG is Rochelle Walensky, the director of the CDC. So it'll be Ivy and Rochelle and probably one more honoree at the TAG Awards in November.
Okay.
All right, entertainment news. Well, I saw a very clever and funny and charming movie with a surprise twist that is being released this week in theaters and on video on demand. And it's called Ellie and Abby and Ellie's Dead Aunt. It's an Australian movie about a teen lesbian who has a crush on a classmate and wants to invite her to the big formal dance. And her dead aunt shows up as to give her advice because she was a lesbian activist. And it's really very amusing. We have the trailer to show you.
I'm putting it out into the universe that I did not just like a post from 6 months ago.
What you doing, school captain?
Nothing, just going to class.
It's lunch.
Yeah.
You know those people who make fun of you because you drink almond milk? It's not my fault I'm lactose intolerant.
I'm gay. You're such a bigot. That went really well. How would you feel if a strange woman showed up in your bathroom claiming to be your dead aunt?
Let's bring it in.
Coming out is hard, and I have been sent here to help you through it.
Our grandchildren.
Oh, come on, shut up. Here is a list of conversation topics.
You're making this a big deal, and it's no big deal.
What is on this note?
Don't be such a... No.
I get this is all really new and exciting for you, but it's not for me.
What did you say this story was like? A car crash that you couldn't look away from. All you have done is make me feel different.
Different is wonderful.
Shut up!
You might not be at that age yet where you realise your parents are just human.
I just want what's best for her. I want life to be easy for her.
Difference is indeed wonderful.
Ellie and Abby and Ellie's dead aunt. It's not going to change the world, but it is a very funny, worthwhile movie.
Spoiler alert for fans of Superman comics. Superboy at DC Comics, we hear Clark Kent is going to die, and his son, with reporter Lois Lane, Jonathan Kent, aka Superboy, there he is, will take his place. And after I don't know how Superman dies, but after assuming the role, will come out as gay.
Kryptonite. Doesn't it have to be kryptonite?
I guess it does. It's going to happen in the book Superman, Son of Kal-El.
Did you watch the gossip series that
I did watch some of it with that Cindy Adams and the Shah of Iran.
Well, come on, that's the least of it. All 4 episodes are available on demand, so I have watched the whole thing. There is a little Michael Musto in it. There is a very good gay story in episode 2 about Leona Helmsley.
Yeah.
I might as well tell you, throwing Cindy Adams' 85-year-old mother off her, Leona's Florida property because the mother had gay attendants.
Oh, Leona was a homophobe.
Exactly.
I think we reported on that in the show in the 20th century.
Yeah. So this 4-part series, Gossip, on Showtime is all Cindy Adams, all day, all night. Horrifying in many ways, but I always admired Cindy's ambition and
friend to dictators worldwide, including Donald Trump.
Did a great job of all of that. So if you're interested,
she's a character.
Definitely.
Jacqueline Taboni, actor on Showtime's L Word Generation Q, announced she is engaged to her longtime partner, Australian actress Cassandra Clemente.
Well, that's Jacqueline on the right, and viewers will recognize her as Finley from the show. She's kind of a screw-up on the show with a heart of gold, but she seems a little more together in her real life. So congratulations to them.
The documentary On Broadway is opening about the last 50 years of changes in New York theater. It opens on August 27th at the Quad and then goes national. Features lots of LGBTQ talent. We have time to show the trailer?
Yes.
Go ahead.
When you're approaching Manhattan, you look at it and you think, am I going to conquer it? Will I conquer New York?
New York is a place that when 8 o'clock at night rolls around, the curtain is opening on some of the greatest performers around the world.
It's the most palpable I've ever felt, that connection with an audience.
You have to be present as an artist, and you have to be present as an audience member for the experience to really happen.
Yeah, that's Broadway. Come on, come here. I'm going to give myself to you, and you're going to come on, love me.
It's a commercial landscape, and every day you have to pay your rent.
It's a business, kid, and everybody's got to pull his own weight.
The theater district in those days, it was so down on its luck.
Help save the Marasco Theater!
When the AIDS tragedy hit, the theater community was particularly hard hit by it.
While Broadway was grieving, this invasion happened.
Broadway began to be priced out of existence.
There's just such a feeling of risk, giving people something they have never seen before.
How come you ain't never liked me? Who in the hell ever said, I got to like you?
American plays give us back ourselves and empower us to go forward.
We need the voice of the marginalized. Right now is the time.
What's new? What's fresh? What is going to inspire the next kid who thinks, oh my God, I'm going to write a play?
Ian McKellen there. You also saw Alexandra Billings, who has just been announced for the role of Madame Morrible in Wicked on Broadway when it reopens.
So you can see that in theaters or on video on demand. Congratulations to Lil Nas X, who is re-upping with Taco Bell. He worked there as a teenager, and now he is going to be their chief impact officer. He's getting involved in their foundation, giving scholarships. He's got all sorts of stuff going on with Taco Bell. The world is spinning on its axis that Taco Bell is willing to associate with Lil Nas X.
His erotica is not holding him back. And T.J. Osborne, of the brothers Osborne, said on CBS that creating a safe space for LGBTQ fans is worth more than anything. He's really loved being out and what it's doing. It's changed his whole life.
New documentary on Netflix, Untold Caitlyn Jenner. If you're going to be triggered by dead naming, watch out. This is all about Caitlyn's sports history at the Olympics and the decathlon. But it's quite fascinating if you're not familiar with all of that.
Thanks, Ann. I'll be back next week with Chris Cooper.
See you in 2 weeks.